Hello, welcome back to the video. Today we'll be painting these cool Seraphon models. We have some Croxagores and some Saurus Warriors. I really wanted to do a cool scheme here, something high contrast, something that pops off the table. I really like this blue look, so this was the goal going into it. It's pretty simple. We're just going to blend and use the color wheel here to really lay out a good scheme going into with some good pre-planning. On the color wheel, we can see that blue and red, of course, are primaries. They're also complementary. So we're in that area with the turquoise, and the pinkish hue of the skin is kind of in a red orange. So they're pretty complementary. Looking for our third color, I was thinking gold for our metallic highlight kind of contrast color. So yellow, that works there. And you know, it's pretty standard scheme if you think about blue, red, and yellow. A lot of color, Superman, Space Marines, a lot of common paint schemes out there use these. I think it'll look really good on these. Looking at the reference model here, the first thing I like to try to tackle is the scales. You can do either one for scales or skin, but I want to go scales. And here's a quick reference for our paints that we're going to use for our progression. I'm going to start out with a base coat of Dark Sea Ben by Pro Acryl. It's a nice even coat over the whole model. We're just going to try to build value through color here. So we're just going to slowly mix into the mix of Dark Sea Ben with turquoise, and we're going to get some good color gradients and some smooth blends that way. If we take half steps in between the two colors, it really helps through the opacity of the paint and more of the translucence when it comes through the airbrush. We can get a really nice gradient going into these scales. The next step here, though, this turquoise and dark sea green mix, we're going to be focusing on the tops of scales. It's kind of like a zenithal, not necessarily, because we're not really using true light. We're just kind of going off of the parts of the scales that we would need, the more pointy bits. The more we go up in our color progression, the more we're going to focus on the tips of the scales. When we add our green blue in, that's what we're going to be focusing on, really the back of the spine, making a top arch point of light and moving down from there. Once we're done with our highest color of scales, we're going to move on to our skin. We're going to first start with brown rose. It's a great color for starting off any Caucasian skin. We're really just going to use this to block in where the skin should be. There will be a hard line between the scales and the skin. That's not a big deal. It looks good. It might not look good right now, but it does blend in nicely after a few steps, and we can always fix the transition later. But there would be a hard line between where the scales and the skin met. We can be pretty rough about this, you don't have to be exact, and it works. Now that we set our boundaries, we're going to mix our highlight color in, and we're going to work on the muscle definition. So we're going to aim from above, more of a zenithal, and really just kind of focus in on where our muscle definition is going to be. We're putting to the pecs, to the abs, to the sides, the pretty obvious parts we want the light to hit. Now, before we go to our wash step, we can really unify this model with a quick coat of brown ink shot from below with the airbrush. Not a crucial step if you don't have the ink, but I think it really helps unify most of the paints on this model. It brings them together a little bit with a nice shadow. Moving to our wash step, first thing we're going to do before we get to the oils, we're going to use an acrylic wash of burgundy. This is from Two Thin Coats. Very watered down wash consistency. This is a great way to define the recesses on our muscles and give them a very light touch, but it does add that definition later. It really helps. It does look subtle before it dries, but you'll see later it really does pop nicely. Next, we use black and blue oils mixed together to make a wash. This is just to go over the scales and any silver bits that we have. This works great. We're not really trying to cover up a lot of that work we already did. We're really just trying to get the recesses. So when we clean these model ups, we're going to be pretty aggressive cleaning these models. The other one we're going to use is a black brown wash to do any gold bits or the bronze. We're going to clean up with a makeup brush, makeup sponge, and we're going to rigorously clean these. We don't want these to look too dirty. We did a lot of work up to this point. We really just want to make sure that this is all focused in recesses. Now that everything's dry, I give it one coat of matte varnish to lock everything in and make sure that none of the oils or the mineral spirits residue left over is going to mess with how our paint dries and if we need to thin our paints down. Now we're at the highlights, we should look at the model really quick and see where should our eyes be drawn. Where do we want the eyes to be drawn? In my head, it's scales and skin. The gold will be a nice accent as well, but we don't have to spend a crazy amount of time on that when we can put all of our time in the scales and the skin, and that's really what's going to make this model look amazing. It's also a large part of the model to begin with, those two areas. First, let's start on the skin. We're going to do more glazing, more steps. We're going more to a higher highlight, so we're doing that brown rose, and we're going to even mix in some basic skin tone here, and we're just going to keep layering glaze on glaze, the same spots over and over, a little less every time, just to really build the definition up, to really highlight those areas we're looking for. We're looking for the obvious ones, where the muscles pull, the top of the muscles, around the edges of the definition. Best part about this step is we can alternate between the skin and the scales. Because we're doing only glazing here, we need to wait for them to dry. So basically what I'm doing on the palette is I'm starting with skin, letting the skin dry, moving to the scales. For the scales, I'm going to start off with a dry brush of my turquoise and green blue. We're just going to go and use these two colors the rest of the time. The dry brushes just give me a real set. It's not necessarily just hitting the tips. I'm actually stippling into the scales a little bit to add some color into the body of the scales to make a nice smooth transition to when I go to my green blue and I dry brush this color, I'm doing it mostly on the tips. Last thing on the scales, I'm going to go on the brush and I'm just going to really edge highlight everything, mixing sky blue into my green blue to make a really sharp highlight color. And I'm going to hit every edge of every major scale right at the tips, and it's really going to make the model pop. Now that we're done with our skin and scales, let's just hit the rest of the model. I'm working on the jade stones. I'm just going to focus my color of jade mixed with turquoise. I'm using this and I'm using these two colors and I'm just focusing into the middle of the stones, trying not to get them into the recesses the best I can. I'm just using this mix in the middle of the stones, try not to get into the recesses, and I'm just going to slowly add more turquoise and sky blue into this mix to bring it up to a position that I like it. We're not doing a crazy effect here, we just want them to be defined. Last step here, I'm just going to take some gold and I'm going to stipple it onto the bronze. Really easy here, it's not the main color, but we just want to give it a little bit of definition. And with that, that's pretty much it. These models are good to go. Pretty simple paint job here, but the steps that we pre-planning steps and the steps we took with the airbrush and our manual brush really helped us get these things done quick. You could do a lot of these models pretty quickly. You could do a whole army like this. It wouldn't be so bad, to be honest. The hardest thing is the just waiting for the stuff to dry and maybe some of the edge highlighting possibly, but I don't know. I think it's pretty easy and I think it looks great. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, and share. All those good things. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you.